creek. Walk 'em up and down in the summer heat. Same old boy changing like the seasons. Country kid turning to a town right heathen. Country kid turning to a town right heathen.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Old Man Van Running. Finally back in the Old Man Van Cave, the Old Man Van Castle, after almost a month away. The last video you saw was my recap of the New York City Marathon, and then a week later, actually a week and a day later, on November 13th, 2023, Old Man Van underwent major surgery. Now this was planned surgery, strategically planned so that I could recover from New York and then have the surgery and hopefully recover by early December to get back into my Boston Marathon training. Initially, I was debating whether I was going to let everybody know exactly what happened to me, but I figured I have this forum here that I can use to help other folks with a similar issue, folks that may be thinking about this procedure, have planned to take this procedure, or have had this procedure and are struggling through their recovery. Figured this would be something that, would be useful for folks. So full disclosure, Old Man Van had major internal and external hemorrhoidectomy surgery. It's an issue I've had for many, many years. Back in 2013, I had a conservative procedure done. And then getting back into running over the last few years, all that pounding really exacerbated my issues and prompted me to check with a surgeon and finally get this procedure done. So before I go into the details, on Saturday, 2 days ago, I actually got outside for the first time and ran out on the Farmington Canal Trail. I did 8-mile run, and I'm going to show you a quick video of how that run went before I get into the details on my procedure.
Hey everybody, it's Old Man Van here, back on the Farmington Canal Trail in Cheshire. Listen, it is December 16th, 2023. The last time I talked to you all, the last time I did a video was right after the New York City Marathon back on November 5th. Well, on November 13th of 2023, Old Man Van had some major surgery. I had a full internal and external hemorrhoidectomy, and it was an extremely difficult struggle to get back to where I was running again. The first 2 weeks I was bedridden. We'll talk more about it in a few minutes when I get back to the house, but it just was a very difficult recovery. And I was really worried that it was going to derail my Boston Marathon training plans. So I'm going to tell you, a little over a month later, I'm going to be out there today, probably doing 7 or 8 miles. I did 6 on the treadmill yesterday. So I'm getting back into it, over 20 miles this past week. So I'm finally feeling like I'm ready to get back into full training mode, and really excited about this beautiful day, low 50s today, and getting back out there. So we'll talk more when I get back in the house. I never realized how much I would miss this. This journey over the last month has made me appreciate just the basic abilities to do things so much more than I ever did before. Got a new outlook on life, the freedom to run, the freedom to just do the basic things in life. Don't take it for granted. It can be taken away in a moment. Just enjoy every moment of it. I've told my friends, being able to get up and run every day, those days when you don't feel like it, not being able to do that is so much worse. So appreciate it. Please don't take it for granted, and enjoy the run. Just hit the 4-mile turnaround point. Still feeling okay. No issues down below. Just taking it easy. So I'm back, got 8 miles in today, probably between 9:30 and 10 minutes per mile. Really happy about this. No big issues at all, no issues related to my surgery, so that's really good. So it's a stepping stone, right? That's about 27 miles this week, going from pretty much nothing. I think I did about 14 last week, or 11 and a half maybe. I think it was less than 14. Gonna take it easy tomorrow, recover, start the week easy, and really enjoy the holidays and get myself back to a normal training load. So really happy about this. It's a big milestone. Let's get back in the house and we'll go into the details about my surgery and the difficult recovery that I had.
So there you have it, a really good run on the Farmington Canal Trail, right? 8 miles, my first outdoor run, felt really, really good. under 10 minutes per mile. Very happy with that. And I'm really happy I'm back into training mode. I'm about 85 to 90%. I'm not fully recovered, but the major issues I was having have been resolved. And now I'm able to go out there and run without having to worry about, do I have to run to the bathroom? So that's a really good thing. Now, a little bit of background as well. So I've had this issue for many, many years. I had it back in 2013. I had hemorrhoid banding done, which is a very conservative treatment. They take some little rubber bands and they kind of squeeze off the blood vessels in there. And it's minimally invasive, doesn't really hurt. They shrivel up after a couple of days. That's a really good thing. In my case, the 3 blood vessels we all have that manifest themselves into internal hemorrhoids, those were huge. They were big, big, big. They were prolapsing a bit. It just was a really bad situation. And the only way to fix that was to remove them. Now, I also had some external hemorrhoids. Really wasn't sure if he was going to remove those, if they were big enough. They really had never given me a big issue, but wasn't sure what was going to happen there. Now, understanding that I'm a marathon runner, right? My doctors knew that. They knew I wanted to run New York, so we didn't schedule it before New York. And then they knew I wanted to recover a little bit from New York, get the surgery done right away so that I could get back into Boston Marathon training. So they really did work with me. They scheduled it on November 13th, so a week and a day after the New York City Marathon, so that hopefully I would recover well enough by early December to get back into training. Now, fast forward the day before surgery, a couple of things I had to do, right? Couldn't eat anything or drink anything after I believe it was midnight on the day before. My surgery was scheduled for about 2:30 p.m. the afternoon on that Monday. Instead of taking the stuff you do for a colonoscopy where you kind of clean your whole self out that night, they prescribed me a, not the most pleasant thing in the world, but a fleet enema that I needed to take about 2 hours before I went to the surgery center. And that's something I had to do myself. And that was not pleasant at all. The goal there was just to clean out the end, right? The end of your digestive tract there so they could go in and do the work they needed to do. So I went ahead and did that. I hadn't, again, had anything since the previous night. My son, my older son, he drove me to the surgery center, took me there, and was going to wait for me. Now, the doctor that day had a bunch of procedures, so my surgery was delayed. Finally, I went in about 4:30, and I don't believe the surgery went ahead until maybe like 5:30 or so. Now, they gave me general anesthesia. It was intravenous. They then put a breathing tube down my throat, so I was fully knocked out. When I went into the OR, as soon as they put the IV in there, boom, I was out and I woke up in the recovery room. Now, I didn't see the doctor afterwards. It was late at night. By the time I woke up, I think it was like 7:30 p.m. And there were just a couple of nurses there. So I didn't get a chance to talk to the doctor about exactly what had been done, right? The full extent of it. But I was told, hey, you know what? You're going to go home. It's all packed up and we'll talk to you the next day. So my son brought me home. I was like, hey, I don't feel all that bad. I still had anesthesia in me. Still had narcotics in me because they had given me narcotics. They sent me home with oxycodone. They sent me home with a list of instructions as to what I needed to do. Those instructions were as follows, right? I needed to take oxycodone as needed. I needed to take Miralax once a day. I needed to take Metamucil fiber supplement once a day. I needed to take Colace, which is a stool softener, once or twice a day. And I needed to take acetaminophen and ibuprofen every 4 hours. So for the ibuprofen, it was 800 milligrams of ibuprofen. So I would take that. 4 hours later, I would take 1,000 milligrams of acetaminophen, so Tylenol, and then I would continue to alternate that. So part of the issue is when you're taking narcotics like oxycodone, that can make you constipated. The last thing you want after hemorrhoidectomy surgery is to be constipated, right? You don't want to have to push anything really hard out that opening when you finally go to the bathroom. Which brings me to the other issue, right? You need to start going to the bathroom as soon as possible. You need to be able to urinate. It's not going to be easy. You need to be able to defecate. Within 48 hours, typically they're asking to make sure that you're able to go. Some people it takes a little bit longer. Some people go a little bit less. All depends on the extent of that surgery as well. So within 48 hours, they want you to go. They've also packed internally, put a pack up there that has some medication on it that needs to be passed. So before you can defecate, you need to pass that out. Sometimes it's going to come out on its own. Sometimes it's going to come during that first defecation. So the day after surgery, I was feeling pretty good. I was like, wow, this doesn't feel too bad. I still had the packing in there, but I didn't feel bad at all. The hospital called me in the morning and said, how's your pain? I said, oh, it's only about 2 to 3. I wasn't on oxycodone at that point. I was feeling pretty good. My dad came and visited. I actually filmed and completed the video of my day before, at the New York City Marathon Expo. I finished that video that day. I was feeling pretty good. They were like, wow, 2 or 3, that's pretty good. I was like flying high. It's no big deal, right? Old man Van's going to heal up really quick. Well, day number 2. That's when things took a turn for the worse and I descended into hemorrhoidectomy hell. First thing, I hadn't gone to the bathroom yet. Had not gone to the bathroom yet. It was over 24 hours. It was approaching 48 hours. They told me I needed to call if I hadn't gone by then. So I called them. I said, listen, I haven't gone to the bathroom yet. I haven't been able to defecate yet. It's almost 48 hours. What do I do? They had me take milk of magnesia. So I had milk of magnesia. I had Miralax. I had Metamucil. I had Colate stool softener. All trying to get things moving again. And I hadn't gone. So finally, that night, I was able to strain. It took me about 2 hours to finally get something out. The packing came out, and then I was able to get some defecation. However, here's the thing that was really bad. Although I was able to defecate a little bit, I never felt like I had relieved myself. So I was having to strain. I couldn't sit down on the toilet. It was just brutal. And then even worse, I realized I had fecal incontinence. Not uncommon, especially early on in the recovery, but fecal incontinence. I couldn't control myself. I called my kids and I said, you got to go to the store. You got to get me Depends. I need Depends because I can't control my bowel movements. So they rushed to the store. They got me what I needed and got back. So I was going to be relegated to wearing adult diapers until I could finally control myself. I couldn't sit on the toilet. I had to kind of prop myself up and kind of squat over the toilet. And I was straining just to get anything out. And it just nothing really would come out or clean myself out. So it was brutal. I couldn't obviously sit down. I had to lay on my side on the sofa. Every time I got up, I would feel this pressure like I had to go. But then I would go to the bathroom and I couldn't go. It just was a real brutal experience. Another thing I did was I ordered a sitz bath. I had a sitz bath, which was a little plastic tub you put on top of the toilet. You fill it with warm water and you kind of sit in it. That's supposed to help clean you and also help relax the muscles. So I would use that. I would then walk into the shower or jump into the shower. Not jump, but I'd climb into the shower. I'd put the warm water on. I'd have to lean over and let the water kind of cleanse me. But again, I was fecally incontinent. So there were times when I would actually defecate in the sitz bath or in the shower. And I'm going to tell you, you know what? When you need to go after a hemorrhoidectomy, don't worry about that. All that stuff goes to the wayside, right? You do what you have to do. You obviously have to clean yourself up after that and clean up after that, which isn't easy because you're struggling. But I did that. I had all my supplies. I had my diapers, right? My Depends. I had cleaning solution right there. I had whatever I needed to help me out, but it was just a brutal existence. I could barely walk to my kitchen to get a glass of water. I would have all that pressure. I'd either have to run to the bathroom and then I'd be in there for 2 hours or an hour and a half and still not get relief. And then I'd get back to the sofa and have to lay down on my side, always on one side. And it just was a brutal experience. Now, besides that, I was trying not to take the oxycodone. I was trying to keep that, as little as possible. I don't like narcotics. I don't like medication. I was taking the ibuprofen. I was taking the acetaminophen. But I'm going to tell you, I wasn't taking it exactly the way they had recommended. So I was just in a really bad state. I was able to eat. I was able to drink. First couple of days, I was eating soup, right? I was eating soup, stuff that is low residue, right? So it's not a lot of waste products. But then they want you to get into higher fiber food. So I had a lot of fruit in the house. I had my kids go out and do the shopping for me, right? So I had a lot of fiber in the house, a lot of fruit. I had them get me like Raisin Bran so I could eat that in the morning. No dairy products. I was using like coconut milk or almond milk instead of dairy. And no meat, no red meat at all. I was eating a lot of fish. That would be the protein I would have, a lot of nuts, a lot of high fiber food. So I was able to eat and I was able to sleep. Even though it was very uncomfortable, I would take the oxycodone, say at night, along with the ibuprofen, and it would make me comfortable enough that I could sleep. But it was, just during the day was just a brutal existence. So some advice I have from a planning stage is make sure you have adult diapers, right? So Depends or whatever it is you're going to have. Make sure you have the food and the things you're going to need in your house to keep you hydrated and keep you nourished. I also had things like Ensure, that type of stuff. So a liquid diet if I needed it, if I really didn't feel like putting anything bulky in there. So make sure you have all those supplies. I had pillows, I had all the things I needed to try to be as comfortable as possible. Had all my medications out where I could get them. So make sure you have everything planned out beforehand. So I had heard that days 2 through 8 are usually the worst. And I had planned this again, right, so I could get back to training, but also so that I'd have, say, 10 days before Thanksgiving. So that first week, really, really bad right after the first day. And then it didn't seem to get any better. I was still struggling to go to the bathroom. I would go to the bathroom and I would struggle and strain for over an hour and still not get relief. So fast forward, we're now 9 days out, and that is the day before Thanksgiving. And I was hoping I was starting to feel better, and I really wasn't starting to feel better. So my older son and his wife were hosting Thanksgiving for the very first time. They're having a lot of people over, and I was really hoping that I would be able to make it. I couldn't make it. I was very depressed about it, very upset. But my 3 wonderful kids, what they did, I was in my house by myself while everybody was celebrating Thanksgiving. My kids showed up, brought me a Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah, it wasn't high fiber. It had mashed potatoes. It had gravy. It had stuffing. It had turkey. And you know what? I ate it anyway. It was the best meal I've ever had because my kids were sitting here with me. And you know what? I'll cherish that forever. Now, the next day, the day after Thanksgiving, so now we're at day 11, I was struggling mightily. It was actually the worst day I had had. I just wasn't able to get a good evacuation, right? A good bowel movement that just made me feel relieved. So I called my son and my younger son, and they said, Bill, you got to come here and help me. You got to help me. Then I called the hospital. I was on the phone with the hospital 3 times that day. I'm like, you got to help me. I don't know what to do. It's 11 days out, and I'm not feeling any better, and I'm struggling. One thing that I told you earlier is you've got to follow the instructions, right? So the instructions they gave me was, you know what? You need to take the oxycodone if you need to take it. The next thing they did is they gave me Valium or Diaxonone, which is basically Valium, a muscle relaxer, to try to relax the muscles. Because every time I got up, it felt like my insides were going to fall out, right? There was all this pressure down there, probably due to the swelling. Plus, I didn't have any control, right? I was incontinent, and it was just a brutal feeling. I couldn't stand up, couldn't walk around. So the one thing that I wasn't doing that I should have done is taking the ibuprofen and acetaminophen around the clock as directed. I'm always worried about taking too much medication, and that was the issue there. So what I did that day is I said, okay, I'll take the oxycodone if I need it, but I will follow their plan to the T. So what I did is, 800 milligrams of ibuprofen, 4 hours later, 1,000 milligrams of acetaminophen, and around the clock. And Saturday, the day after that, I started to feel a little bit better. And then Sunday, day 13, I finally was able to do a really full bowel movement and felt some relief. And I felt so much relief that I said, you know what? I'm going to see if I can walk a little bit, because being active, as soon as you can is really important. And I hadn't been out of the house yet. I hadn't walked out my door. I couldn't really walk around, as I mentioned, right? I could only get to maybe the kitchen really quick to get a glass of water, and then I had to lay down again. But finally that Sunday, I felt enough relief that I figured, you know what? I'm going to walk out the door. I had the Depends on. I don't care if I crap in my pants. I'm going to go take a little bit of walk because I need to start moving. I walked out the door. It was a great day. I did this little walk, maybe a couple of 100 feet down to the corner and back to my house, and that was the first bit of progress. Then I had a 2-week appointment with my doctor. Again, I had only been out of my house that Sunday, right, day 13, just to walk to the end of the street. The next day I did a little bit longer walk, right, and was able to do that. So then on that Tuesday, I had scheduled my 2-week appointment with my surgeon. And normally they check you after 3 weeks, but my surgeon decided 2 weeks because he knew I wanted to get back to running, so he was going to check me out. So I had nobody to drive me. I had my supplies because I still was having some issues with incontinence. So I had my supplies with me. I had my Depends on, and I said, you know what? I'm going to get in my car. I didn't have oxycodone, so no narcotics, so I could drive. And said, okay, it's not that long a drive. It's about 5 to 10 minute drive. I'm going to take that drive and see if I can do it. Brought my supplies with me in a backpack and went to the doctor. I'm sitting in the doctor's office. He walks in, puts his hand on my shoulder, and the first thing he says is, I hurt you, didn't I? I looked at him and I said, are you effing kidding me? Yeah, you did. And then I said, you know what? I didn't see you after surgery, so I don't know the extent of what you did. And he went on to explain to me that he removed all my internal hemorrhoids. They were very, very bad. And he removed the external hemorrhoids. External hemorrhoids, those are the most painful. The internal hemorrhoids, that's not a big deal, right? Yeah, you get a lot of swelling and stuff like that, and you have those issues with incontinence, but it's the external hemorrhoids that are the most painful. And think about this, right? You have an open wound there. They're basically cutting them out, suturing them up, and now you have to defecate over those open wounds. It was like somebody took a white hot branding iron and shoved it up my backside. It was brutally painful. Screaming, crying, tears down my face. Just horrible, and you have to go. The oxycodone, didn't fully mask it. Even the other stuff I was taking didn't fully mask it. So I was in a lot of pain, and I'm wondering if I wasn't on any of that stuff, how much worse it would have been. But it was absolutely excruciating. Now back to the doc. Well, he examined me. Everything looked good, said it's healing properly. And then I asked him the $1 million question. So doc, that's good. Everything's going good, right? When can I start running again? He looked at me and he said, when you feel comfortable. When you feel comfortable. What does that mean to me? That means that when I feel comfortable enough to run, I can run, and I'm not going to do any additional damage. I'm not going to blow out the wound and open the stitches or any of that sort of stuff. So that, to me, was the first sign of real progress. It meant that I could start doing whatever I felt I needed to do to get back to it. So with that, the next week, although I was still having the struggles, right? I wasn't back to work yet. I was still working from home, trying to work from home. I decided I'm going to start walking on my treadmill. I have a treadmill in my basement. There's a bathroom right there. If I have to get off, go to the bathroom, I can do that. So first I did a mile on the treadmill, very, very easy. Took a day off after that. Next time I did, I believe, 1.5 miles or 2 miles. Very easy. Did that for a few days until I got to the weekend. And then I believe that next Sunday, I finally did like a mile walk and then 1.5 miles. Very, very easy jog on the treadmill. So every other day I was trying to do a little bit more. I was still struggling. In fact, I was struggling so much some of the days, I'd have good times and bad times. I was actually in a meeting in a Zoom call. I didn't have the video on, but I was on a Zoom call on a meeting where I had my laptop on the side of the tub while I was standing over the toilet, right? I'm just going to tell you, it was that kind of week. Now week 4 comes. I'm starting to feel a little bit better, right? I'm not having the best bowel movements in the world. Like I said, I'm having some that are pretty good, and then I'm having others where I'm still feeling kind of like that pressure, and I'm feeling like I can't really eradicate what I've got in there or get rid of it. So I was having an up and down scenario. I wasn't taking the oxycodone anymore. I was taking the diaxonone, which is the Valium, right? Just if I felt like I needed a little bit of muscle relaxant there, I would take it, but I wasn't taking the oxycodone anymore. I was still taking the ibuprofen and the acetaminophen, but I was trying to like take an interval off so that I could start to wean myself off that. So then, I did that 1 mile walk and then that 1.5 mile jog. The next time out, I did, I believe, like a 2 mile jog on the treadmill, and I alternated days. 2 mile jog, day off. 2.5 or 3 mile jog, day off. Alternating days, so I'd give myself a little time to recover, but I was progressing through, doing a little bit more, a little bit quicker, nothing fast, but just making that progress to get my body moving again. Also that week number 4, I went back to work. Now this was really difficult, right? I had my bag with all my stuff. I was still wearing the Depends. Going to the bathroom at work was not something I wanted to do because I didn't really have the ability to turn the faucet on and get water to put on my toilet paper. I had disposable wipes I was taking with me. Just was not something I wanted to do, so I spent a lot of time in the morning so that I could then go to work and not have to worry about it during the day. The worst part about work was I either had to stand up, which I still felt some of the pressure, or I had to sit down. And sitting down on my wound was not the most pleasant thing. And, being at work for 8 or 9 hours, that wasn't pleasant at all. So finally, the solution I found is I had, those neck pillows you have when you fly on a plane. I actually took that, put it on my chair, and used that as kind of like a donut, a ring, and that helped relieve some of the pressure. But it was not a pleasant week at work. In fact, the Thursday of week number 4, it was so bad at about noontime that I told my boss I'm going home and working from home the rest of the day, which I did, and I was laying on the sofa for the rest of the day. But I was still making progress. I was still able to get a couple of little runs in. Now we get to the end of week number 4. Saturday morning, at the end of week number 4, I had a really bad morning. I was again having struggle going to the bathroom, and I was supposed to go to my son's house for lunch. I didn't think I was going to be able to make it because I was struggling, but right around 1 o'clock, I was supposed to be there around 1:30, I was finally able to get a full bowel movement out, and I called him up and said, a miracle just happened. I was finally able to take care of myself, and I'm going to come to lunch, and I did go to lunch. So that was the last really bad episode I had. So that was the end of week 4. Week number 5 this past week, I finally was starting to feel comfortable at work. In fact, I was finally starting to feel so comfortable and finally being in control of my bodily functions that I no longer needed the Depends. I finally weaned myself off of the adult diapers and I was fine. I was more comfortable at work. I started to eat normal food and I wasn't having constipation. I wasn't having issues. I was also able to start running more. I progressed up to 5 miles. I was up to 5 miles and I did 2 5-milers, obviously separated by a day on the treadmill. And then I took a day off this past Friday. Actually, I took a day off this past Thursday. And then Friday, I was able to run 6 miles on the treadmill and then 8 miles 2 days ago on Saturday. And that brings me to today where I am. Much, much better, almost fully recovered, 85 to 90% recovered, and just so happy that I've made it through this difficult situation. It was the toughest 2 weeks of my life, the most pain I've ever felt. I don't wish this on anybody, but then the question is, what would I do differently to make it better? Follow the instructions that they give you. I didn't do that. I felt I was tougher than that, and I didn't follow the instructions to the letter. How much of a difference it would have made, I don't know, but I sure know that it would have taken a little bit more of the edge off. Now, depending on the extent of your hemorrhoidectomy, there are some concerns, right? A couple of the concerns that you really have to pay attention to is not to get constipated, being able to urinate. You need to be able to urinate, right? You don't want to be in a situation where you can't urinate and then they have to go and put a catheter up there to relieve you. So make sure you're focusing on that, whatever you have to do. And again, doesn't matter where you do it. Doesn't matter if you do it in the sitz bath. Doesn't matter if you do it in the shower. Do it wherever you need to do it, but you need to do it. Make sure you're taking the fiber supplements. Make sure you're doing those things that they ask you to do. Make sure you move around when you can move around, right? It's important to be active. Don't do any heavy lifting or any very heavy activity that could re-hurt yourself. Make sure you have all the supplies you need. Make sure you have that support system that can help you out, whether it's a neighbor or a family member or whatever. Doesn't mean, and I didn't have somebody with me 24 hours a day, but I did have my kids available when I needed them to go shopping for me because I couldn't do it myself. Make sure you have that. Make sure you bulk up on supplies before you go under the knife. Another complication you have to be cognizant of is anal stenosis or anal stricture, especially with the external hemorrhoids. You know, it's right around that anal sphincter. And I know this is gross, but this is the reality. And as the wound heals, what can happen, especially if they cut a little bit too close to that muscle, and that can make it very difficult to go to the bathroom. I was worried about that. I started to feel I was having a little bit of that, but luckily for me, everything relaxed as I healed, and I haven't had that issue over the last week. So I was worried about it, but it didn't become a major complication for me. And lastly, do I regret having the surgery? You know, there's some folks that say, you know, just change your diet. For me, this had progressed so far that it was never going to get better and could be progressively worse over time. I want to keep running, right? So I'm pounding all the time, starting to have prolapse with those hemorrhoids. Didn't want those hemorrhoids to get strangulated and cause a much worse problem. You know, losing blood from time to time, not a good thing. So for me, this was the only way that I could deal with this issue and hopefully never have to deal with it again for the rest of my life. Does that mean it could never come back? Well, that's why it's important not to go back and just eat cheeseburgers all the time, right? You need to have a diet that helps keep you from getting constipated, because constipation is the biggest factor in hemorrhoids coming back. So, you know, I eat a healthy diet. I don't really have a problem with constipation. So for me, it looks like this is the fix that's going to make the rest of my life much, much better. Yes, the pain is horrible. Yes, the recovery is brutal. You know, the way I'm feeling now, understanding this has been fixed, I don't have any regrets. I don't want anybody to ever have to go through it, but for me, it was the right decision. For you or anyone you know, it's a personal decision you have to make. It's a quality of life decision. For me, it was the right decision, and thank God I had a great surgeon, and thank God I didn't have the complications that I was very, very worried about. And I'm just glad that I've made it through and I'm back to training, and you know, the sky's the limit from here on out. So thanks for watching this video. I really do hope it helps some people out. If you like this video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you'll get notified when more videos are posted. Please, please, comments, any and all comments, as you know, help my channel. And, you know, if you know folks that you think might be interested in this particular video or this channel in general, please let them know. So thanks again for following along. Thanks again for watching this video. Thanks again for all the support. Thanks again for all your patience. As always, remember, lace up those shoes and let's get out on the roads.
Railroad tracks run along the creek, walk 'em up and down in the summer heat. Same old boy changing like the seasons, country kid turning to a town right heathen. Country kid turning to a town